Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Automation Days Asia 2022. I'm incredibly excited that you've decided to join today, and it's promising to be a full conference day with a lot of in-depth sessions, a lot of networking opportunity, and some of the greatest automation speakers from across Asia Pacific. I'm super excited that you have taken the time to join us today and that we can start our second edition of Automation Days Asia with the theme Intelligent Automation. In the first few minutes of this conference, I will tell you a little bit around the logistics and what you can expect, how you can find the different sessions, switch between sessions, and what the program will look like. Afterwards, I will get started on our opening keynote, which is all about hyperautomation. But before we get started, let me take a brief moment to introduce myself. My name is Jan-Willem Middelburg, and I'm the CEO at Cybiant. Besides that, I'm also the author of the Service Automation Framework books and certification scheme. And I've been involved in the domain of automation for close to 7 years. I find automation a very fascinating topic, and I've seen real life how it's changing organizations, the way that we operate, and also the possibilities that can be done within an organization. I'm incredibly excited to start sharing a little bit today around the latest changes, the latest technologies, and how you can leverage automation best practices in order to fundamentally change your company. Before we get started, I would like to take a moment to showcase you all of the exciting speakers who have joined our program this year. In the next day, you're going to be hearing from a variety of automation industry experts that are coming from all kinds of different industries. We will be hearing from large financial institutions, major recruitment firms, oil and gas firms that all have started or are embarking on automation journeys. Some of these organizations are already quite far, and they will be sharing some of their best practices on how they have gone through that journey. Other companies, some startup companies, have invented innovative automation solutions and are rapidly changing the world with these specific products. I'm so incredibly proud to showcase this list of industry experts and present them to you today. Every year, our team puts a great amount of effort, and we're working for months to put together a program like this. I'm always very, very excited and proud to share this list of speakers as we see it today. It also means that for the first time, we've needed to divide the conference into different tracks. There was no room anymore to list all of the speakers sequentially. That's a good thing because it means the conference and the popularity is growing. It's also a bad thing because it means that you will need to make choices on where you're going to spend your valuable time today. Besides our great list of speakers, I'm also very, very grateful to all of our partners without whom this event would not be possible. Our partners are sponsoring this event and make it accessible and available for everyone. As you all know, the tickets for this Automation Days Asia conference are absolutely free, and we intend to keep it that way. This means that the industry partners are helping us out with making sure that we can still keep organizing this conference. I'm incredibly grateful to the Service Automation Framework, the Project Management Institute from the UAE, MDEC in Malaysia, IBM, BMC, APMG International, the DOCO, UiPath, Smart IPA, Tikri, Matrix Invent, and Cloud Vision. A list of great industry partners who have been making significant contributions to establish today. On the bottom of your screen, you can see a way to interact with us during the conference. So I would like to already do a very quick test and put your virtual hands together for this great list of speakers today. You can find that at the bottom of your screen, and this is right away also a little test to see if all of the interaction works. I'm going to keep encouraging you to do that during all of the sessions, because the benefit of joining a conference like this in a live environment is that you have the opportunity to interact. You have the opportunity to ask questions. You have the opportunity to express your emotions with the emojis, as I've just done. And it's showcasing you some of the main benefits of doing this conference virtual. We've had a lot of discussion this year on whether we should be going back towards the live format, but because we are having and attracting an audience everywhere from between the Middle East all the way towards the Pacific Islands and all the time zones in between, we've decided to keep this edition a virtual conference. Speaking about engagement, on the right-hand side of all of the sessions, you will find a menu bar. And on that menu bar, you will be able to interact with us during the sessions. For any of the presentations, we will have included a Q&A towards the end. So if you want to ask questions, please put your answer or your questions in the Q&A so that our team can moderate the questions. And at the end of every session, we will be providing you with the answers. If you need quick support or would like to ask a question directly, what you can also do is use the chat. The chat is just sequential, so it's not ordered in terms of priority, but we will keep an eye on the chat as we go throughout the conference. So please, as we've just mentioned, make use of these opportunities. They're here for your benefit, and this is absolutely one of the great opportunities of making sure that you join a conference in a live setting. Good. This is also the first time that you will be able to join this conference from any kind of device. Note that there is also a mobile application where you can join the conference and listen to it on your smartphone. It will also contain functionality to interact and to use all of the Q&A functionality. The app is called Zoho Showtime, and you can find it in the Google App Store as well as the Apple App Store. And you will see some of the pictures as you see them here on the screen, where you can join and log into sessions. Good. As I mentioned already, I'm very excited that this year we will be having 3 tracks that will be happening simultaneously. It means that we will start a new session stipped at every hour, and we will have 3 concurrent sessions every single hour. With the exception of the opening keynote, which we will start in a few minutes, and with the exception of the panel discussion, which is happening during lunchtime, and the award ceremony, which will be presented towards the end of the day. I'm incredibly excited to announce 2 of my colleagues who will be moderating and be hosting the other 2 tracks. First, I would like to introduce Jeremy Chia, who is going to be the host for the second track and is going to be helping out with all of the speakers and introducing and moderating the questions there. The second host for today is Mr. John Wheely, who is going to be hosting the third track and is going to be helping out with joining the questions there. So once again, I would like you to extend a warm word of welcome to our other hosts who will be making this day possible and that will be working around the clock today to facilitate you in order to have the best possible experience. During the sessions, the hosts will be monitoring the chat, will be helping you out with questions, and if you need any support at all, we're going to be able to help you out through the hosts. Good. Note that we have 3 tracks available in the session today, and you will see that these tracks are demarcated with different colors. All the sessions in track 1 will be demarcated in purple. Track 2 will be demarcated in a faint red, and everything in track 3 will be in green. It means that if you look into your online platform, you can select the sessions based on the track. So note that as soon as you select a track, you will only see the sessions that are part of that track. But if you would like to go towards a different presentation or a different presenter, that you would need to switch between the different tracks. We're specifically saying that up front so that you have that you know where to find this. And always on the left-hand side of your screen and the left-hand side of your panel, you will see a button with sessions. With these sessions, you can always switch between the different tracks. So if there are two speakers that you would really like to join, you can switch between the different sessions by moving between the different tracks. Every hour, a new track will start. So we will be very punctual in terms of the timing. It means that every session will be around 40 to 45 minutes, including the Q&A. We will end every session definitely at 50 past the hour so that we have the opportunity to already set up the new speakers for the next sessions. So every hour you can expect a new expert that will share his or her ideas on this particular topic. To give you a full glance of the agenda, I have prepared a slide with all of the different sessions, with all of the different speakers. You will see that there's 3 centralized tracks, one which will be the opening keynote, which is happening right now, the panel discussion, and the closing remarks. And on each of the tracks, you will see different speakers with different topics. So depending on your interest, I strongly suggest that you already start planning which different sessions you would like to join at which particular moment. I'm not going to be reading out all of the different sessions because that would take too long time, but note that a full overview of the entire conference program is available on the main event website. Additionally, you can find all sessions and session descriptions by clicking on the sessions button, which you will see on the left-hand side of your screen. Start thinking about which sessions you would like to join, and there's also functionality this year so that you can already start bookmarking a session so that you know that you can attend that, and then you will get a notification to switch toward that session. Good. Note that if you have other business commitments and you would like to rewatch a session or you would like to share something interesting that you heard with a colleague, note that we will be recording all of the sessions and will make them available through the conference website as well. You will need to be able to log in for that, but we're going to be making sure that all of the sessions will be recorded, so you always have an opportunity to watch them back. Good. Then I also have something new to introduce this year, and it's been a development that I'm personally very, very excited about. This year will be the first year that we will also be presenting the Automation Days Asia Awards, abbreviated towards the ADA Awards. This will be the first year, and I'm quite overwhelmed with the amount of nominations that we've received from various industry experts, the amount of companies that have submitted proposals to be nominated for an award, and especially the jury, which I will introduce a little bit later, that has been putting a great amount of time and effort to independently vet all of these different Automation Days Awards proposals. This year, we will be handing out 4 different awards, and the award ceremony will take place at 5 o'clock today at the end of the day. We have devised 4 different categories to recognize different industry leaders or companies that have made significant contributions towards the field of automation. Today, we will be handing out the awards of Thought Leader of the Year, Project of the Year, Technology Innovation of the Year, and the Rising Star of the Year. I will explain a little bit more around these awards categories when we get towards the award ceremony. But also note that the winners of the award categories still don't know that they're going to be receiving an award. And they will all be with us live at 5 o'clock this afternoon. So it's promising to be a very exciting and surprising award ceremony. So I'm hoping that you will be able to join that session as well. Good. Last but not least, before I start a more in-depth discussion and start presenting the keynote, note that as with every event these days, we are also available on social media. And if you would like to comment or say anything around any of the sessions, any of the speakers, is that we will be tracking and tracing the hashtag ADA, which stands for Automation Days Asia 2022. So if you go to any of the social media platforms, we are present on almost all of them. Please reference us and try to look for Cybiant and use the hashtag ADA 2022 so that we can track and monitor all of the comments that are happening. Good. With that, I would like to quickly end our discussion around the logistics. I see more and more people joining the session as we will go along. And I would like to once again extend a very, very warm welcome for everyone who has decided to join Automation Days today. We have received in excess of 600 registrations this year, so I'm extremely excited that all of you have taken the time to join us today. It's time to move into the main session of this hour, the opening keynote, in which I've put a lot of thought on what I would like to share with you in this first hour. And I've decided that a very, I would say, popular and growing theme is going to be around hyperautomation. And I've labeled the subtitle for this presentation, The Future of Automation Beyond the Hype, because the word hype is within hyperautomation. What I realized over the last year in talking to different clients and being involved in a lot of different automation projects is that hyperautomation is a term that is relatively new, and many organizations find it difficult to deal with it and difficult to interpret. So what I will be doing in this keynote is give you a brief overview of what the domain of hyperautomation entails, what are some of its underlying techniques, and most importantly, why you should care around this new development within the space of automation. Good. For those who have just joined, my name is Jan-Willem Middelburg. I will be presenting the first session with you today. I'm in charge of Cybiant, the company that's hosting the conference today. And besides this, I wrote the Service Automation Framework book back in 2017, which is nowadays regarded as a best practice standard for moving organizations towards automating their services. And I'll be sharing some of those ideas with you today. Good. Before we get started, and also to make this session a little bit more interactive and also to make you familiar with all of the different features of this platform, I'm going to be starting with a very quick poll. And I'm going to be asking you, what do you already know around hyperautomation and are you using it in your organization? Give me a moment to launch the poll right now. And there it comes. You should be seeing it on your screen any second. So is hyperautomation, which is something completely new for you, you have no idea what it is? Have you started looking in on automation, but it's very, very early stage? Or do you consider your organization a hyperautomation organization? Very interested to hearing your thoughts, because that also gives me quite an idea of the audience that is going to join us today and how far people are along within their automation journey. I see that most people have found the poll already. Almost half of you have already completed it. And I'm going to give you 5 more seconds to fill it in before I will share the results with everyone. Good. I'm going to be closing the poll any second right now, and it's going to be closed. And the results are as follows. And it should be showcasing right on the screen right now, is that out of all the participants that are live in the session right now, 57% has no idea what hyperautomation is, which is a good thing because that's what I'm going to be explaining today. 43% has started to look into automation, but is still in very, very early stages. It's also very good that you are joining today because I'm going to be showcasing some steps and also some very practical capabilities that you can start building. And actually, nobody in the session today says that they're already actively using hyperautomation. So I think that means that I've selected a good theme for this year because it's a theme that is new and something that not a lot of organizations have fully adopted and embraced yet. So let's start looking a little bit into hyperautomation. And I'm going to get started with looking at the official definition. Before we know where to go, it's always important that everyone is on the same page. And this is the definition that is being used by Gartner, one of the research firms, and that I think is a very good description of what hyperautomation is all about. I'm not going to read out the whole definition, but as you can see, hyperautomation is going to be focused around a business-driven, disciplined approach to rapidly identify, vet, and automate business processes. And the main thing that I want you to realize by showcasing this definition is that hyperautomation combines a variety of different technologies, tools, and platforms. There's not just one single solution that is providing hyperautomation. What hyperautomation is going to be doing is combining different ideas, different algorithms, as well as different technologies from a variety of different fields. And if we break down this definition a little bit more in details, you can actually see that there are a number of core technologies which are enabling hyperautomation. And I call these the hyperautomation capabilities. If you look very closely at the definition, and I've highlighted everything in blue, that you see that you can break it down into artificial intelligence, machine learning, software architectures, RPA, as well as business process management technologies. And it's the combination of these different domains which will elevate regular automation towards hyperautomation. And this is very important to realize right from the start, because from my experience and my conversations with clients, I always feel that there is a little bit of a misconception about what hyperautomation is and why it's so different from more traditional automation technologies. So let's look at that a little bit more in detail. And what I've done is to start with 5 commonly phrases that I've been hearing and that are misconceptions or myths around hyperautomation. Many people think that hyperautomation is the same thing as robotic process automation or RPA. That's not the case. If I go back one slide, you see that RPA, which you see at the bottom, is one of the enabling techniques within hyperautomation. And it's definitely true that you will need an RPA tool or technology in order to move towards hyperautomation. But just simply buying an RPA solution does not mean that you're moving towards hyperautomation. You need more than that, and you also need to have additional knowledge around that. And that immediately brings me towards the second misconception. Many people think that hyperautomation is just a tool that an organization can purchase and then start to implement. And I know that this is driven specifically by the vendor community that have started to embrace the term hyperautomation. But in many cases, if you want to move towards a hyperautomation environment, you need more than just a tool. It's also about mindset. It's about culture. It is about a change in the way that you work and a change in your processes. Third most common misconception, and I keep hearing this, is that hyperautomation and automation technologies in general should be only cost-saving opportunities and that they will result in a direct reduction of the workforce. That's definitely not the case. Yes, hyperautomation is going to help you to become more efficient, typically is going to help you grow and get a competitive advantage. And that typically means you need ultimately more manpower because your organization is growing or is becoming more efficient. Fourth main misconception is that hyperautomation takes the complexity out of artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques. And although there are various very good solutions that will provide easier ways to use this, you will still need to have knowledge around how artificial intelligence and machine learning techniques work. So it's not that it's taking out the complexity, it is just that it's facilitating the application. And that's also one of the important points that I want to make today. If you want to move towards a hyper automation environment, you will need to learn a little bit more around how these AI and machine learning techniques are going to be empowering an automation environment and how you could do that. So to build upon that, what I've done for today is I'm going to be showcasing you what are some of the most commonly used AI and machine learning techniques within hyper automation environments. And I've also made a connection towards how you could use that in practical use cases and how these different algorithms and technologies can help solve specific business problems. So I think you'll find that very practical. And the last part, and it kind of ties back towards the title of my presentation, is that I'm very frequently hearing that hyper automation is just a hype and that it will blow over. It's going to be my strong opinion, and I think that's not going to be surprising, that I think hyper automation is here to stay, and that companies that are embracing this right from the start will start to become more competitive than companies who don't. So let's look at that a little bit more in detail. In order to understand how hyperautomation works, we're going to be focusing on three different technologies that are going to be empowering it. And I've kind of simplified it a little bit for the presentation today. I know that there's also some other techniques that are empowering it. But broadly speaking, basically what hyperautomation is trying to do is combining traditional workflow and process automation technologies, which is all about the execution of processes, making sure that things work automatically or at set schedules, and then combining that with machine learning techniques. And within today's session, I'm going to be specifically focusing a little bit more around the machine learning techniques. Most of you will know machine learning is a subset of artificial intelligence, which is that concerns itself with very, very practical algorithms, which will teach a computer how to learn. And combining machine learning algorithms with RPA technologies, which are already quite advanced and that can help you to, for instance, get data out of systems or to read all kinds of documents or to extract them from emails, that's what is going to be empowering your organization to move towards the next level. So why is this necessary? And how is this going to be different from the traditional automation techniques which are already in existence today? And in order to understand that, I always like to showcase the following graph. I know that the whole domain of automation is always focused around mimicking what people are doing behind computers. I've been involved in a lot of RPA implementation projects across the region. And one of the key selling points of RPA technology is always right from the start is that it will enable a robotic workforce. And in essence, that is true. Computers and robots can do things that people do behind a computer, typically faster, more accurate, but also more repetitive. Robots will work in the middle of the night. They don't need vacation days. They also don't have any public holidays coming up. So all of those aspects are absolutely true. The only thing that is not true is that RPA and RPA robots and technologies can do the same level of thinking that people behind a computer do. If there is an unexpected event, if there is an exception, what you will see is that an RPA robot has no clue of what to do, and that frequently means that it will either crash or give an error. So I want you to fully understand, even though a lot of vendors will tell you otherwise, is that in essence, RPA and workflow systems are not smart by nature. In the end, what RPA robots will do is follow what is known as repetitive rule-based tasks. And it means that within a computer, everything works based on very simple conditional logic. meaning that if we go through a specific set of options, a computer will think, hey, what is the best way to go? Should I be going this direction or should I be going that direction? And on the right-hand side, you can see a very simple way that a workflow works, and conditional logic is typically programmed within if-else statements or for while loops. So for those of you who will have a computer programming background, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. So in essence, RPA and workflow technologies are not smart. And in order to move towards hyperautomation, in order to start making robots which are a little bit more smart, we're going to try to emulate that and mimic human decision making. And the only way that we can do that is by applying some of the thoughts and methodologies which are coming out of the machine learning and artificial intelligence domain. Of course, we can have a whole debate on whether that will make robots as smart as people. You can rest assured that that's definitely not the case, but at least it will bring you a step further. So let's look at that a little bit more in detail. And what I've done for today is that I have selected 4 types of machine learning and AI algorithms. They're actually machine learning algorithms that are most commonly used in hyperautomation. And I strongly believe that if you want to take the next steps within a hyperautomation journey, is that you should at least know a little bit around these 4 techniques. You don't need to become a data scientist or a data expert, but you do need to know which technique should be used in order to get a particular result. So the first technique that I will briefly discuss is classification and classifiers, which is probably the most famous or most widely adopted algorithm within hyperautomation. With classification, we're going to be ensuring that based upon some training that we've been doing on a computer, we can assign values towards a new category. This sounds vague to you right now. Don't worry, I will have one slide around each of these algorithms with some practical use cases and examples. The second main technique that you should know a little bit more around is clustering algorithms. If you combine clustering algorithms with automation, you can actually make some very smart decisions, which will lead towards additional insights. What we're going to be doing in clustering is that we're going to be clustering groups of people together, but then automatically. And you see that this can be used very widely, especially in advertising, product development, and customer segmentation exercises. The third set of algorithms that you should know a little bit around is NLP, or natural language processing. Natural language processing helps to interpret text or speech and is able to, for instance, translate that into different languages, or it's able to detect what people are actually meaning when they're sending a particular word. Can be used to see how people think about specific products. Can also showcase automatically how people are feeling or are inclined towards certain products or companies. And last but not least, we're going to talk about anomaly detection. Anomaly detection is there specifically to find out if there are any data points which don't fit a normal pattern. And we will see that this is going to be used primarily within, let's say, big banks or insurance providers to detect, for instance, fraudulent transactions. So these 4 main classes of algorithms are very important to understand if you want to move and take the next steps within hyperautomation. Each of these different categories of algorithms, because these are not in themselves algorithms, each of these categories can be broken down into a variety of different techniques, which I'm going to leave for another day. But what you should understand if your organization is trying to move towards a hyper automation environment is what is the purpose and how are these different algorithms going to be translated in helping to solve business problems. And that's ultimately what it's all about. The reason that I've selected these 4 categories is because they are the most popular ones, but also is that there are very clear and proven use cases which can help to showcase how this works. So let's look at some of them from each different domain. The first one is classification. And classification is probably, out of all the algorithms, the ones that you're probably going to be most familiar with. Classifiers are used to train data to categorize new inputs and showcasing how that can be used or can be classified towards one or more categories. And within a business context, you see that classification is used for two main major use cases. First one is what is known as automated document recognition. So based on documents, whether they're written or whether they're scanned or whether they are PDF documents, classification algorithms can be used to detect text and see what people actually wrote down on specific documents. This is known as optical character recognition. Most of you will know that as OCR scanners, which is a very good use case if you combine that with RPA solutions. A second and more, I would say, advanced form of classification is used within image recognition. And we see this is used in hyperautomation environments on more and more. Companies that, for instance, make photographs of pipelines or of buildings can use these kinds of techniques to automatically identify where repairs are needed, or where, for instance, specific elements need to be repainted, or whether there are any issues that need to be acted upon. With hyperautomation combined on classification algorithms, you can make some very automated and very smart decisions on how to apply this. So classification is probably the most widely used use case. And if you want to start somewhere, I'm likely going to be recommending to start with looking at classification opportunities. The second main domain is that of clustering. Clustering problems require a system to create certain categories, and those categories can be used automatically. So to give you a very simple example, suppose that I would have everyday data sets of people who have gone towards the supermarket, or that have bought specific clothes in the clothing shops, or who have gone to the movies. Then what we could do is cluster all of that data together and automatically start to create profiles around what are common features and systems between those groups. And a very common use case where that is being used is for automated market segmentation. We look at groups of people, then with clustering algorithms, we can fairly accurately predict how different people can be separated based on some characteristics. And the benefit of that is that those people will typically have similar needs and similar wishes. So we can use that for advertising or showcasing different products to different people. And this technique is therefore also primarily used towards a new development, which we've been seeing in the last 5 to 7 years. And that is that in retail locations, you now see more and more dynamic or sometimes even real-time pricing. And the underlying technique that enables that is a hyperautomation environment that is using some of these clustering techniques. You might not necessarily realize that the next time that you're in front of one of those dynamic pricing labels, but actually those prices are being refreshed on almost an hourly basis. And that also means that within the cash register systems, they need to have a mapping between what is the price at a given moment in time. These kind of techniques are already used widely within, for instance, the airline industry, or for instance, concert tickets based on demand. But you see that many more organizations are now trying to optimize their pricing by setting these kind of dynamic pricing strategies. Good. So those are, I would say, two very, very common, very proven use cases of hyperautomation. The third one, which is also one of my personal favorites and I think a very, very interesting field, is how to embed natural language processing within hyperautomation. We could, for instance, use these kinds of solutions to automatically do translations of specific documents. So if you're working in a multinational organization that is across the world and you're operating in multiple languages, in many cases, you will need have a requirement to produce documents in different languages. Hyperautomation can help you to do and that those translation of documents quite or completely automatically, and for instance, every single day. A lot of people think that this is tremendously difficult, but we see nowadays that the techniques are already quite far developed. It's no longer the case that these translations will be a little bit groggy or are going to be incomplete, or that it will start to showcase all funny phrases. It is even possible these days to showcase and list specific terms that are going to be specifically used for your industry, and then translate them accordingly to all kinds of different languages. And this is what you see in the example on this slide, which is coming from Google AutoML, in which you have the opportunity to very specifically list translations which are industry specific. So if you are in IT like we are, there's a lot of jargon. If you're in oil and gas, there's a lot of abbreviations. So you could use and list all of those specific definitions. And then the machine learning algorithm will take that into account. And when it's doing these auto translations, it's going to optimize towards those specific keywords. It's very fascinating, and I also want you to know that these specific solutions are already available today. So the Google AutoML example that I'm showcasing here on the slide is just accessible through a regular API, which you could access with any kind of RPA technology. And the last key example I would like to give you today as a machine learning algorithm is anomaly detection, which is widely used to recognize whether something fits a particular pattern or not. Anomaly detection in RPA and combined within a hyperautomation environment, for instance, can be used for detecting any kind of forward signatures. So this is used at banks that need to review checks, for example. It's with a very high level of predictability possible to detect whether a signature is forged or not. And if you need to process tens of thousands of checks every single day, then using these kinds of techniques in combination with a robot, instead of people manually looking and verifying these checks, is definitely going to be a major value add. We also see that this technique is being used within IT itself. So on the right-hand side, you see an example of how anomaly detection is used for suspicious network traffic. RPA solutions are already today looking at a lot of different network traffic and are able to detect that on almost a real-time basis. But combining that with anomaly detection algorithms, you could actually start to see when there are any issues that might be coming up. Good, so that's my brief overview of some of the most fundamental hyperautomation techniques. Let me go towards my next poll. Now that you know a little bit more around that, if you think about a particular use case based on the examples that I've just given you, which hyperautomation technique do you think your organization could already use? Let me take a quick moment to launch the second poll and take a moment to answer that. You need to make a choice. Even if you haven't started, I'd like you to think a little bit about what you just learned and see where there could be use cases for your organization. Good, I'm going to give you 1 additional minute to do this. Good, and I'm closing the poll in 5 seconds. Good, I see a lot of people have voted already, and I will showcase the results right now. Good, as you can see, there's quite some mixed ideas, and it kind of is a testament to the wide representation that we're seeing on the conference today. But most of you are looking at classification as a primary use case. And I would tend to agree with that because that's the most proven methodology. It's also typically one of the easiest ones to implement. So classification could be a very good way to get started. Good. So last but not least, I would like you to quickly showcase you how you could get started. And in order to do that, I'd like you to start looking at a very simple use case. This is an actual use case that's in existence today, and it's for a company that needs to process around 22,000 documents every single month. So when you start looking at that, what classic RPA will do is that it's able to process those documentations. That's not difficult. Setting up a project for that is going to take you a few weeks at most. It's very easy to daily sort and order all of these documents with classic RPA solution. Where it becomes a little bit more interesting is that all of those documents can then subsequently be digitized, and you need an OCR scanner for that, which is a character recognition that we just talked about. But where it starts to become hyperautomation is if you're combining it with different machine learning technique. And that's what you're seeing on the right-hand side. So with the algorithms I just showed you, you could build models that automatically detect what type of document it is, which is based on a classifier, and then start to give a specific confidence level on which fields are on the document itself. You can set all kinds of thresholds for that to make the machine learning model more accurate or inaccurate. And if you're interested to learn how this works, please contact me after this session. I'll be happy to showcase you some of the details of this. The reason that I picked this is that every organization, and I'm sure for all of you as well, will need to process documents on a day-to-day basis. So start thinking about how hyperautomation can help you to do this as well. Good. Last but not least, the last key thing that I want to leave you with is that in order to move towards hyperautomation, you need to start thinking about a variety of different aspects. I always see that the discussion very quickly focuses towards the technology domain. And as I've shown in the slides just now, yes, this is necessary. But moving towards a hyperautomation environment requires more. And a lot more is given in the program management section, which you see on the right-hand side. Moving towards hyperautomation means that you would need to think about your operating model, management reporting, how you're going to be using this for process improvement, and what does it mean for your operational processes. So take that into account. In order to take those first steps, you could do a very quick assessment. The model that I showed you on the previous slide shows exactly where an organization has strengths and weaknesses. So my recommendation in order to get started with hyperautomation is start looking at where you are today. Assess what are the different capabilities that you have and determine your strengths and weaknesses. And then based upon that, start to look at where you can identify quick wins and where you could build capability structurally. The right-hand side, you can see a quick example of an organization that has done that, which immediately showcases where some of their strengths and weaknesses are within the domain of hyperautomation. And with that, for the sake of time, I'm going to skip the last poll. And with that, I would like to give you a couple of key takeaways. I'm almost out of time, and there's already next sessions lined up for the next hour. So I'm going to leave you with a few key takeaways to make most of your Automation Days 2022. Before you start the session today, first of all, realize that hyperautomation is not RPA. In order to move towards a hyperautomation environment, you need to combine multiple technologies, including techniques from machine learning and artificial intelligence. And I've shown you some main techniques that are used within hyperautomation. The second main key takeaway that I would like you to think about is that machine learning and AI algorithms make hyperautomation very exciting. And if you use this first and in the right way, I'm 100% sure that it's going to give your organization a competitive advantage. Thirdly, in order to start benefiting from hyperautomation, you need to start building capabilities. And today, with the program that we've created, we're gonna inspire and learn you a lot of different techniques from different schools of thoughts, from different vendors. So use this day to your advantage and make the best out of Automation Days Asia 2022. And I'd like you to leave you with my humble opinion is that hyperautomation is definitely not a hype, and it's there to stay. Thank you so much for joining us on this first opening keynote. I hope I inspired you to start thinking a little bit around automation. I'm going to see if there are any questions real quick. Good, I see the questions have already been answered by my colleagues. So if you would like to contact me afterwards, you can always do so. My contact details are coming up on the screen right now. I would once again like to thank everyone for their participation and their active engagement and all logging in this morning. It's an absolute great pleasure, and it gives us a lot of excitement for hosting these kinds of sessions. In the next hour at 10 o'clock, you already need to make a difficult choice. On track number 1, we're going to be hearing from Harish from Verizon that is going to be talking about user feedback. In track number 2, we're going to be talking about automation of your businesses in today's digital era. And that session is going to be presented by Ratna Pratim. And on track number 3, we're going to be talking about automated decision making. And that session is going to be presented by Ansari from PodMinds. Make most out of your automation days. Thanks so much for joining today. And I look forward to engaging with all of you in the upcoming sessions, of which I'm also going to be a host. Thanks, everyone.